Whatever you think. It looks like you got lots.
I'm good.
We're rolling.
It is rolling. It's live. I can't see it. You're looking at it.
Yeah.
You tell me if it looks
You have
off.
to turn your mic towards yourself, though, no?
Yeah. So, test. Yeah.
You're really close to your mic.
I shouldn't need to be that close, should I?
It's your setup. Do whatever you
I'm
want.
telling you that I didn't need to be that close. This is the perfect distance.
I'm just looking around here going, man, I feel like I'm in an Arctic Cat display showcase room.
Turning it into.
Yeah.
Well, in the Yamaha
Winter Nutz Extreme Hotel is where I feel like I'm at. There's like the wood stove. There's like a fridge, some beer cans there, a bunch of sleds. I'm counting like six sleds maybe, and a bunch of tools.
There's a couple around the corner you can't see because one's a Christmas present. No, Emerson's 200 for Christmas. It's covered under all of my tarps. Tarps.
What's he getting?
He's getting a Yamaha 200.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. With the square headlight?
Yeah. We picked it up used this summer out of Golden.
You going to put a turbo on it for the little guy?
Not yet. Yeah. I'll have to talk to Darren. Yeah. I think Darren's done it all. But anyway, Alex Hanson.
Yeah.
Sled Farm.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome.
Yeah. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
I like this setup.
Thank you.
I like the idea of a podcast. Was kind of watching other people do it. I've actually done a podcast myself in a completely different genre, nothing to do with motorsports, but set it up, and yeah, they're kind of fun. They're cool. They're hip now. People are listening to them. So,
well, when you're at work, you can just have one earpiece in while you're working and listen to it while you're on the go.
Pretend like you're actually concentrating on work instead of thinking about sledding.
Exactly. It's like every day for me. That was half the morning. Hey?
Yeah.
Well, you and I even talked about doing this, or you just the conversations we had coming back from Castlegar and those chute climbing days. And I'm like, man, the stuff that you know and the stuff that you talk about, you'd be so good in the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to let all my camera secrets out there. Nobody was going to put that much effort into it. Nobody.
So camera stuff though, and talking about filming in Castlegar, this is the Sled Farm. Anyone wants to look it up on YouTube, I will share the link in the info. Take you straight to it.
Yeah, so we did film a movie. A bunch of that was in Castlegar, the old Dan Davidoff Crazy Canadians crew. Hudikoff, the Lindley brothers, Tanner. I mean, I don't know what to say about those guys. They're all nuts.
They are nuts.
Yeah,
they're a whole
totally
other level.
Crazy. Yeah,
like there's the guys that we go to Ravi with, and then there's those guys that are up in Castlegar.
Yeah, they're like wild animals. That's how I liken it to, like wild animals. And I'm always like trying to, you plan, you do a bunch of safety stuff, you watch weather windows, like all the stuff that we do to try and get the sickest footage, and like, saying no to different features and different climbs and stuff that is in your head for years on end, and then you don't touch it until everything is just right. And then you go to Castlegar and you like slam a couple of
Red Bulls. We'll just say Red Bulls.
Red Bulls, that's what we'll call it. Slam a couple of Red Bulls and eat some muffins. Yeah. And those guys just take off, and you're like, man, it's just basically.
It can be pouring rain.
Praying to the mountain gods not to die.
I can't believe Tanner climbed that chute that day. What was that big one that only a couple people did? That big one, Dan Davidoff's big chute. And I did it there that day.
Oh,
and then I called,
Vanishing Point.
Yes, and I called Tanner on the radio. Man. I'm like, I think you can do it. He saddled up on a naturally aspirated sled, held it tinned all the way up. There was no way he was making it. It came short by like 100 feet.
100 plus meters.
And we had to pull him all the way up over the top.
Yeah, so side note, hanging out with those guys actually spurred one of my latest kind of ventures and stuff that I've been talking to you about for about a year now, rope rescue technology. So Vanishing Point, the Norns, Castlegar, you go up, we film it, you're up and over, you're like, oh, it's so easy. Tanner hits it on the NA, gets like 3/4 of the way up, and then plants it. Couldn't go any further. It's so big and so steep. And so out come the ropes, and the sun's going down, and there was even two guys in the bottom of the valley that were part of the group that we were with, that kind of hang-arounds for those guys that were wanting to watch.
Yep.
And then they saw that, and you could see them pack up and leave. They're like, yeah, we're not watching this anymore.
It's going to get bad.
So the ropes come down, and then there's some guy comes out, and he's like, oh, like, I've got this roll clip here, and we make a 3-to-1, and we build this like kind of crappy system that probably couldn't pull, well, obviously it could pull some weight. So we were doing progress capture with a couple of guys, and then hand bombing the sled up, because we couldn't lower it down, and vanishing point you actually can't ride down because there's a bit of a kink. And once you get going straight down, you go over the cliff,
the slide pass,
you're done.
make waves.
You're either going up and over the backside, which is what you did, and then 2.5 hours, and then it's dark out. We finally get it to the top. I got a bunch of that footage on my cell phone that hasn't seen the light of day. I should probably dig it up. And then the coolest part, that was a heck of a workout. It felt like throwing up afterwards. But the coolest part is the sun goes down, and then you drop over the other side.
It was the perfect timing to get his sled to the top. And then the sunset was going to happen that evening or that afternoon.
By the time we dropped down, it was dark. I went over the edge in the dark, and many people don't know this about me, but I have a fear of like falling after a couple big impacts and fractured spine and major injuries in the backcountry. I have a natural tendency not to want to fall or go somewhere where I don't know where I'm going, but it's pitch black out. And it was just like, worse. I'm in Castlegar, man.
You got to man up, because these boys are already leaving.
We're already here. Like, you're not getting out of there. No. So over the edge you go, and I just remember dropping into that bowl and behind and feeling that weightless feeling, and and then the boys coming behind, and it's like, we just got out of there with the skin on our teeth. That was a crazy day.
That was a big day.
That was huge. Yeah.
And some of the best footage. The footage that you actually used in Sled Farm Rising was from that day. A lot of it.
Right. Yeah, a bunch got cut because we were trying to like make it a snappy video, and it was essentially the last major film that I think it's the last major sled film that I put together. Mm-hmm. So thinking about doing another one. Nobody wants to buy them anymore, and now it's like I do have on the film side, I've got some decent supporters and clients, and I do some marketing material. But at the end of the day, it's such a small niche market that is really hard to carve out any sort of realistic program to be a film guy in this industry.
You have to love it, because you love it. See, there's no income really being made for movies. So for you to make another movie, if you ever did make another movie, it is purely out of the love of the sport and the filming that you like to do.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if people would buy films, but DVD is done. Nobody rents anything anymore. People are used to the free content and scrolling, and the most interesting change that I've seen lately is actually a move back towards higher end film guys. So I put myself in the higher end film category. I shoot professionally, not just in the snowmobile land, but mining, other stuff I do. Yeah. But just in terms of social media and all the content, and everyone's got cameras in their phones, there's like this mountain tidal wave of like low grade, high volume content, and the consumer that wants to consume that content values choice. But we're 3-4 years into this now, and that's where all the marketing departments went. And then now some of the bigger companies are like, well, how do we get our product and punch through this noise? Like, we got to go back to the pro shooters again. So it's kind of turning around a little bit. Doing a couple of projects this year that are going to be pretty cool. Can't really talk about them right now, but there still are unicorn clients out there, and they still support artists like me. And you're kind of making a bit of a career out of it. Like you said, there's some mining work. There's a few other things that you've even talked to me about in the past, and you're able to do more than just film sledding.
There's been weddings. You did a friend of ours.
I don't do weddings.
Okay, don't watch that one.
Don't even talk about that.
As a friend, you did.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he was adamant, and then it was just like, all right, fine. But a bunch of people called me after that, and it was like, I don't do weddings.
Okay.
No.
Well, we'll set that straight right now then.
Yeah. Can't do that. No more bridezillas. None of that stuff at all.
Yeah.
Strictly marketing for products and mostly just stuff that I believe in now, right? So I maintain a full-time job, blasting, open pit mining, mine rescue, full-time job, not doing sled stuff in the winter full-time yet. Maybe might take a month off in the spring and just go filming straight up. But yeah, doing it because I love it. And working with people and groups that are fun and making some marketing materials and selling a bit of art, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But obviously you don't have to survive on any of it. So it makes it real easy to turn down jobs and gigs that I don't want to do with people that I don't really want to work with. And there's lots of those in the sled world for sure. Yeah.
That takes me to the quality of footage you do with the Kyber setups and the handlebars. And I wanted to ask you about that and your setup and what you got, because you promote it really, really well. I was even looking at your Instagram here today before you brought your sled into town, and you're showing what you got and everything. Tell us more about the handlebar setup that you run on your sled, the throttle, the finger throttle, the brake lever, all of it. Like, what do you put on your bars that you like the most?
So Kyber is the setup, Kyber 1, pretty easy to find, really high-end stuff. Eli Walsh, got to know him a couple of years back, went and did a shoot with a woman actually in Sicamous for BC Snowmobile Federation. We were there on a travel video project. And then she kind of introduced and said, hey, you should meet this guy. And he was just coming out with this new product. And he's like, here, have a look, right? Take a look at this. Lots of folks gravitate towards Cheetah Factory Racing. They have a big brand presence in the industry. But I also know folks that work through CFR, a bunch of athletes. And then Tim Gray, who's a guy that I've done some work with in the past. He was kind of like, it's such a small market. Like, CFR supports me and my art, like, you know, and then rather than two film guys competing and duking it out and nobody winning, I just decided that, hey, I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to leave the handlebar thing alone for now. And then the Kyber thing came up, and then obviously the branding, it's not just it's the quality of the products, the small diameter grip, the attack grips, they're really soft. Yep. If you're into traction and you're into motorcycles, you know that having a soft front tire is going to give you the most amount of grip. So Kyber's moved more towards that grip that wears out. Everyone's like, oh, I want this grip that lasts forever, and you
never even thought of that.
But these are designed the exact opposite, and then put them on a small diameter grip, and then add the finger throttle. Kyber just coming out with a finger throttle for 2024 and below, but Polaris has changed the throttle cable for 2025, and so that's going to trigger a redesign, I believe, for both Munster and Kyber. So going to have to wait, I think, in order to get a finger throttle.
Because you're getting quite used to it. It was on your last sled. Now, I rode that sled.
Yeah.
And it was a different feel. I remember the tendons and the muscles in my hand right here were real, trying to hold on and then pull that trigger at the same time, my fingers. But you're totally used to it. What's it going to be like for you to go back to a thumb throttle while you wait for this?
I'm going to take my brand new Polaris throttle block and I'm going to flip it over and try and use it as a finger throttle at first.
That might work.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna try and do. It's more anatomically correct. You're right. You do get the wrist pain. I thought I had carpal tunnel. I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep riding with it. And then after about 4 or 5 rides, it just started to feel a lot better. Currently have a Munster, but going to switch over to a Kyber. Try and get something to work with the 2025 throttle. It's just, the cable, they've changed a few things on it, including the throw. So really, it's the distance when you start the stroke to full throttle. The Kyber finger throttle will have a stopper, a little pin in there, so you don't have to go right to the bar.
Oh, you can adjust it to where you want it to be.
You can adjust it to where you want it to be. So, and it won't be because when you're in the final stages of full throttle, right? Your knuckle is cracked over, Yeah, so you just want to have a trigger, just like an AK-47, M16. You don't want to pull it all the way back into your hand.
No,
right?
You don't want to pinch your other fingers with the tip of that throttle.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, running the Kyber setup, really like that. It's nice and low. Originally, had to get away from the stock Polaris bars with the hoop on it. Kept smashing cameras and smashing my chest and busting armor. And I think I split open my helmet once, going over backwards. And so, yeah, the lower bars, better leverage.
And no mountain bar.
No mountain bar.
No mountain bar, hey?
No.
Okay. And did you ever miss it? Did you ever reach for it? Or were you like, I am glad to have that thing gone?
I got rid of it and haven't looked back. It forces you to to not be lazy.
Yeah.
Right? Because I always find like, you see people, newer riders. I like to go out with newer riders at least a few times a year through the dealership. Mm-hmm. Showing other people how to ride, although I'm not the best rider. But then you see them use the mountain bar and they like get set up for it. And it's this whole program to try and no, get on the throttle, tip that thing up on its side and shred in the direction that you need to go. Point your chin. So I don't use the mountain bar anymore.
I have it on my Viper. And I put bars on it this year. It's 800 pounds. And sometimes you got to get that extra leverage. Like let's say you're getting started at the bottom of a chute, like 20 Street or the 90, and you're turning around in the bottom of the creek and the sled's a little off center. You got to pull it over just to kind of initiate the carve sometimes. Not all the time, but you're right. Then on the Polaris, when I rode that sled, and I doubt these sleds, you'll really need it that often. So if I do change bars, I won't get one, then I'll give that a shot without it.
I think you can have your bars too low. I think that's I run the 9.5 riser from Kyber, which is one of the taller ones for the Polaris direct mount riser system. But you can have them too short as well, and that can affect you downhill, side hilling. And that's what I found is that my very first sled was actually a Skidoo XP 800 2012, like the ones that you could barely side hill and always washing out.
Always going back
and then
on you the other way.
And then we had the big Alberta, Saskatchewan risers, almost like eight hangers. And what I didn't realize at the time is the center of gravity is lower. It's a 550 pound machine back in those days. And so the taller your risers are, the more of a throw there is. So there's actually a sweet spot. If you're too low, then you can't downhill, side hill.
Yeah.
And if they're too tall, any sort of rocking motion or feedback coming through the sled swings your body and just moves your center of gravity a little bit.
Yep.
And then you're off your line. And that's what I've found. If you can get those bars just in the right position with slightly bent knee, bent elbows, and then you're as tight as you can to the sled, then you've got way more control. Because really it's a gyroscope. That's what a lot of people don't really understand or don't think about too much. And that's one of the things that I learned early on coming from sport bike land, super bikes. I've only been sledding for 12 years, I think, about 12 years. But having those wheels, those gyroscopes underneath you and using handlebars to torque and to apply power and ride a gyroscope. But the sled's the exact same thing. It just doesn't have a front tire. So it's almost even easier to control that gyroscope. And all of that goes in through the handlebars. So
it does.
Having a good handlebar setup at the right height with the right width for your body is critical to pulling off the gnarly.
We've talked about her height and how there's sled brands out there that you can adjust your bars and what bars you want to buy. So we've got her on here and we've already seen that, yes, we're going to have to get a slightly lower riser for this sled just for her to get that stance. Like you said, you want to have that aggressive, knees a little bent, elbows in the right position, when you're standing. So we just got to get her down a tiny bit from where that is, because that's more meant for taller guys like ourselves to grab onto where that setting's at so far.
But didn't Arctic Cat used to have the adjustable? Remember that one?
That
used to break all the time.
Up,
the M8
down.
I had a twisted turbo M8. Actually, on the last podcast, you guys were talking about Josh, who bought that just from me, and I got to tell you the story of Josh. The first day meeting Josh. So I have this 2008 Arctic Cat M8 twisted turbo 154. and I think it was a 3-inch track that was on there that was converted like a Skidoo driver or something. Anyways, this thing was from the West Kootenays.
Oh yeah, one of them.
And one of them, yeah. But man, tons of power. But I always kept blowing clutches, and back in the day, doing the mod thing, and had 2 M8 turbos, one boondocker, one twisted, both in the trailer, robbing parts back and forth to just stay riding. And eventually, my buddy Logan, who I'm sure you'll get on this podcast pretty soon, him and his crew that I was riding with and filming with at the time were just like, okay, man, like, you're not riding with us anymore. And so, like, you have to go buy a brand new sled. So anyways.
Yeah, you can't have, we just talked about that too. You can't have a guy breaking down all the time.
Can't have a guy breaking down all the time. So down to All Seasons Motorsports. At that time, Polaris was interested in sort of what I was doing through Logan. And then he just made those connections and sort of made a bunch of that stuff possible. And that's how I ended up riding an 800, an Axis 800 in 2017 was my first. But so I go to sell this sled, and it's like lots of power. There was a few people that had called, and some woman from New Zealand got a hold of me through the KG. It's like, no. The right person has to come along to buy this sled.
Yeah.
Really strong Suzuki motor, everything in tip-top shape. This guy calls me up, Josh, and you could just hear him. He's just like, you're not trying to rip me off. And it's like, dude, I don't need to sell you the sled. Like, anyways, this guy comes to my house. He's got this trailer. He's looking at the sled, and he's just, Josh, right?
Yeah.
But he's kind of like, are you trying to rip me off? Is this going to blow up? Like, dude, I don't know what's going to happen. But this sled here is going to, like, you want to point it somewhere, it's going to go, and it's going to flip over backwards. And, he was into these turbo cars and all this other kind of stuff. First sled. Like, an M8 turbo is not supposed to be your first sled.
Not typically.
But for Josh, and I didn't know him at the time, but I'm just like, you know what? Maybe this guy can make it work, because you got to be able to tinker with these things to make them work right. And so I'm just like, look, dude, like, take the sled. You don't like it, I'll give you your money back. And honestly,
that's a pretty good deal.
I've tried to buy the sled back, and I don't know where it went now and if he sold it, but when he left my place, the deal was he was supposed to sell it back to me if he was ever going to sell it. That's how strong that engine was.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that sled is anymore. So Josh, if you're out here and you're listening, I want my M8 back.
Hey, or there's someone that does have it. Easy sale.
I've heard a few stories. Yeah.
Imagine you put a 174 on that and turn that into your chute climber, because we talked about this before. Like, hey, should I buy a Yamaha just for that one day a year at the Big Iron? Yeah, you probably should. But now I have a better idea. Buy that sled.
We need
back,
to find it. It's
stretch it out.
It's somewhere in Cranbrook, isn't it? Kimberley, Cranbrook area?
Kimberley.
Is it?
Yeah.
Anyways, Josh, I'm coming for my sled.
Yeah.
You're supposed to sell it back to me. I think he's got a short memory, though.
Yeah, well, we'll get
not me.
So, today I also saw you were pulling some wiring apart and saving your shocks. Let's talk about shocks a little bit.
Yes.
Because I am very interested in shocks. I've been shopping around for shocks for probably a good 2 months now, and talking to lots of different people, getting lots of different opinions. So tell me about Fox and the setup you got.
So the decision to go with the Fox setup was, so I was running coil Zebros for a couple of years, doing some marketing through Zebros, pictures of Logan in the catalog. Zebros changed ownership. There was a much larger company, and we've heard this story time and time again. Much larger company bought them out. They made some changes. We both decided to go on our merry way. I think Logan stayed with Zebros. But like a lot of big companies that don't understand the snowmobile world, that they buy a company that has a snowmobile division, and then they're just learning about the snowmobile culture, right? So lots of times there's not a lot of room for art people, camera people, right? So we went our own ways, and through Mountain Sports Distribution, who I've been working with for a long time. They own the Highmark by Snowpulse brand. Just give them some marketing material every year, some pretty cool magazine shots. We usually do at least once a year. Anyways, they carry Fox, so I was able to get pro deals on Fox shocks, and I went with the Barant Air shocks. Most of the big jumpers always want to have coil.
Yes.
I don't do big, giant, massive jumps, at least not onto hard pack and stuff like that, and backflips. And so I thought, all right, let me give these a go. And I liked them a lot because they were really light. I'm so used to a motorcycle, like flicking back and forth.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
anything you can do to make a sled feel lighter, especially when you're trying to flick back and forth. And I liked them so much, and it included that rear lockout. And then the next year, I'd already ordered the electronic version, so electronic on the fly adjustable. Yeah. And those ones took like a year and a half to get. They were really hard to get.
You were waiting that long?
Yeah, it was post-COVID. The supply chain was messed up at the time, and nothing was moving very fast. It's only been, this year? Our sleds are finally on time.
Yeah.
So, once I got a hold of the electronic suspension and started dialing it in, the air pressure to my weight, the adjustability in the backcountry is just insane.
So you're liking them a whole lot. And I'm really interested. What is the difference now between the attack? What is the word for the button where you adjust the 3 buttons on the fly? What's that suspension package called?
It's IQS.
Is it going to be the same setup that's going to be on the Arctic Cats?
I believe it's the same shock with a Bosch unit.
Yeah.
And then just in terms of adjustability for the Arctic Cat, you have to touch a button and go into a menu on the screen.
Okay.
Whereas I'm just using my thumb. I'm not even looking, and I'm making a selection.
Yeah, I remember getting to ride that last year. I played with it a little bit. You can go from wheelie mode to chute climbing mode with that push of a button.
Yeah, I kind of thought I would be using the rear lockout more.
Yeah.
For those big steep tree lines that we go up quite often, but any kind of bouncing or any kind of ruts or bumps, and then if you're in rear lockout mode, it tries to huck your butt up pretty good. So I found that medium seemed to be pretty good, and then downhill, what's really cool is medium to hard going up, and then downhill you just switch everything to soft, and then you get those big flowy carves even in hard pack.
So it adjusts all 4. So when you adjust to medium, all 4 are on medium. When you adjust to soft, all 4 go to soft.
Yep.
Okay. So there's no doing just the rear if you wanted to adjust the rear. You have to pump up more air in there.
That would be nice. I think that's the next level, and from my understanding with the Arctic Cat system, you'll be able to adjust them separate front and rear. So we'll see. I've talked to my buddy Phil, who got himself in trouble playing with computers and code and stuff like that. So I've been chatting with him. He actually bought one of my old Megatron Polaris Boost, the 22 Boost. He has that. He's been learning how to ride. But yeah, we're talking about, how we can get data and make some modifications to some of the factory software. He's that kind of a guy, so
that'd be pretty cool.
That would be super cool.
Real specialized.
Yeah. But yeah, it'd be nice to have soft front shocks and rear lockout at the same time. But
so today you dropped. Actually, I saw you went for a little snort down. I guess you went for a little snort on your sled on Instagram. Okay, a little brap, and then you loaded it up into the truck and gave it a little hug, and that's the end of that for that one.
Yeah,
you dropped it off today, and what do you got on order? What's coming?
2025 Matrix / Boost 155 3.25. So basically the exact same sled as last year.
Yeah.
Just with the slight changes that came with it. So
the Chaos, you said?
It's not a Chaos. No.
Okay.
I need to keep the front end down for the high speed trees. However, the 24 and 25 boosts, or any RMK has the same rails. You just have to change the limiter strap. And
is it the same? Because your shock for your Fox shocks will be the Chaos length, so you could lengthen that limiter strap out if you wanted to.
Do you think? I think it's a separate Chaos shock for that.
It is a separate shock. I was just curious which one you had on your sled.
I have the RMK one.
Okay, so different length.
Yeah, I'm all about the high-speed trees and the occasional climb. And last year was the first year that I went to 155, and it was just a wheelie monster. Like I couldn't. There was places that I'm used to going without even thinking about it that I was struggling, and there was places last year that I couldn't go until I finally
spare skid,
bit the bullet, and built an Ace Hellfire wheel 165 rear skid, which again, as soon as I put that on there, it was just like,
So you still have
full throttle, yeah.
And your 165 track.
Yeah.
And you put them on when you need to put them on?
It's on the new one already. I'm going to go stick with a 165 straight up. Yeah.
Okay. So that sled that you dropped off today is now for sale at All Seasons?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's sweet. What do you got plans? Well, wait a minute. let's talk chutes. I guess we already did. Handlebar, suspension.
Chutes, I could add to the chutes thing. I think there's you got me going in Monster, and then there's a couple more back there that I'd like to look at. The Gash, all those I think are totally doable.
You got to come this year, or we got to go on a different day before it all, and then do it. There's a lot less pressure on you without that big crowd.
I'm not worried about the pressure. It just comes down to timing, right? Like between weather and work and everything else, sometimes I just can't get to go and do some of the things that I want to do all the time.
The get together that we have in Revy on that day is a tough day to attempt things for the very first time, though. You've done Monster, and now you're going to move on to the Gash, and unless you're sitting there with your finger on the throttle waiting for that perfect moment and then hammer it, you bat an eye and there's 3 other guys already going up the top of it. So it sometimes isn't the right day for a new guy to want to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's my favorite chute. And when Chris came out of it last year, I'm like, okay, I'm going. And as I come around the top and I'm coming down into it, I'm watching another guy go up and so on. So it's
a wild west weekend.
You got to be fast. Yeah, you got to know the chute you want, and everyone needs to be ready to run over and film it. And hopefully no one does it while your film crew moves over to that chute to film you come up that one.
Yeah, that's the big difference between planning and filming and just going buck wild. Some days buck wild is good, but you tend not to film too much on the buck wild days, and that's when afterwards you just like kick yourself. You're like, we should have pulled out the drone. We should have pulled out the camera.
And you tend to wreck things on those buck wild days.
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Yeah, you had a good crash. I remember watching the video and thinking, when is he going to run off to the side somewhere?
I just watched it. I just watched it again too. There's another guy on YouTube I just watched here today.
You take a tunnel to the head flipping like that, it'd snap your neck, man. Like you can die in there pretty easily.
Especially the way the one cartwheel went. It was end to end. And it's going to have a lot of weight.
Oh, imagine the bumper and the engine. Like there was a guy, I wasn't there that day, but up in the Elk Valley that passed away. Similar scenario, except he was actually going up and made it to the top, and the sled launched and he fell backwards, and it basically did a backflip and came down and like right into his chest with the front bumper. And yeah, that was enough to explode his heart inside the rib cage. And that's people they scroll and they look at stuff and they have no idea how hard some of this stuff is, and they have no idea how hard it is to film some of this stuff, and they have no appreciation for what it takes to get a crew out there all on the same page with the right weather. Even clients, right? They're just like, oh, we're gonna do this thing, and it's like, okay, avalanche forecast, weather, people. You start putting all this stuff together to actually go and do a commercial shoot or get some content, some really high-end content, and then you start to find out how hard it is. And then on top of that, people putting themselves on the line with these crazy high horsepower machines. Yeah, it's like it's a different reality altogether.
It is.
Yeah.
Earlier we had touched on the rope thing, and I didn't realize the fear of dropping off the edge that you had. And it totally makes sense because you were getting these big rigs setups with all of your harnesses, your ropes, your pulleys, and you did this shoot up Little Sand here 2 years ago. And you had set it all up and you kind of dropped yourself back down into place. You had a friend release the rope, cut the rope. I don't know what they did.
That was Corey.
And then down you went. And so you were already a third of the way down before. And he was letting you out slowly. And then eventually got to that point where he was out of the rope or something. So then he just let you go.
Yeah, so I actually lowered the sled as far as I could. Like I wanted to climb the chute
without you on it.
2 years without me on it. Okay. I lowered it down about a third of the way, ran out of rope, and then ice picked down there to go get it. I've ridden up and down twice now that same chute, but the first time what made it different is it was like really hard, really icy. And I had the 2-inch cut track. I had a 2.75 track, Series 8. on the 165 skid, and I just took a banana knife and like chopped a bunch of those paddles down to 2 inches.
Did it work? Did it cut in
Oh
ice?
yeah. Oh yeah. Higher track speed for sure. It's a cheater track for those conditions.
Yeah.
But on the way down, the avalanche debris, like that avalanche chute slides probably 10, 12 times a year. And it was building up this kind of like a shark fin in the middle. And if you got on the wrong side of it, coming down from the top too fast, you'd end up going over like a 70-foot cliff and then like at about 140 and then piling into whatever's underneath that.
So when you're downhill, was that on the left side?
Yeah, when you're facing down, it was to the left, so...
I know where you mean. I've had a look in there. I've looked at it once.
Yeah, the one just to the right of it is I've been eyeballing, and I was there 3 times last year, and it was perfect, but everybody either had a busted sled or they couldn't make it, and I just sat in the backcountry and staring at this thing going, yeah, I could do that, but you're here by yourself. Like, I even had all my rope gear, full harness, everything, all the way up shadow line, walked right up to the top of the mountain, was going to anchor in and then rappel down and check every little feature as I go, because people just see the money shot, but if you're not doing your homework, you're going to get killed like right away. It's not going to take long. So I stood on top of the mountain, had all my gear, everything was ready to rappel down and drop in, and I was just like, dude, you're out here by yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Like,
good. I'm glad you did. And I did apologize.
Pack up, drop down, make a fire, hang out, and then eventually just packed up, and that was my last ride of the season. So,
yeah, I remember that day. My sled was piled up. You're right. I wasn't able to make it.
It's hard to say no, man. When you want something, it's hard to say no. But
well, super shoot, I wanted it, and it's like we're doing it, and that's another thing you just brought up. All of the stuff that goes on beforehand, no one sees. And then you filmed it. You had to wait. You waited 2 hours almost for us, because we walked down into that first open bowl at the top and we dug a pit. Yeah. And then down further into where the chute tightens up, and it's literally, that's the part of the chute to make sure everything's clear. And then below, like, well, what are we coming up into at that point of no return where you no longer can turn around?
Yeah.
And so we had a good look, and there was a lot that went into it. And with the snow conditions safe, up we go. And like you said, when you want it, you want it. And we wanted it so bad that we had helmet cams on, and we didn't even turn them on.
Taking pictures.
So they're taking pictures the whole way up.
Yours is in photo mode somehow. You managed to do that a couple times, but I learned actually quite a bit from hanging out with you and Durati on like just kind of how to read. And then once I got used to that a little bit, like you guys kind of unlocked the chutes for me a little bit, and now obviously you just have to ride them. Yeah. But holding your speed and saving a little bit for the top, and there's all these little strategy
and understanding that they're not actually smooth. To look at those chutes and say, boy, you just fly up that, but there is so many hidden features on the way up.
Yeah. And if you're going fast enough, it's just like being on flat ground, but you better be moving, man.
And you're going to be starting to wheelie over all those features as well.
And that's when you don't want to be in rear lockout. That's what I learned, because as soon as you're not going to wheelie, but if the front end comes up a little bit and you're relying on that skid to try and absorb a little bit, because you want to keep that track in the snow when you're climbing. That's a lot of people. They love the wheelie machines. They love that kind of kick flippy stuff, and that's why I don't run a Chaos, is because when I want to climb big stuff, that nose has to be down.
Yeah, it does.
The track has to be in the snow.
There's 2 different setups on my sled, on my Viper. With the Racer's Edge skid, we got these little mag blocks that I can put in. And the mag blocks will create less travel, so the skid can't collapse. And that's another thing, is you're right. If it hits something and it does bottom out on those, it'll create a bit of a bounce. I haven't really thought of it a whole bunch, but now that you bring it up, it's like, it does do that. And sometimes I climb without them, and Chris doesn't put them in. He rides without the blocks, and he does really well, good success. And the times I've done it without the blocks, sometimes the wheeling starts. You're like, oh, I wish I had them. But a lot of the times it does absorb those features on the way up a lot better. So,
yeah, we'll see what comes next. I got my eye on another big one. The rope stuff isn't just for fear of falling. I have a mine rescue background, so first response, emergency response on a mine site.
Yeah.
Part of that comes with rope rescue technology, which I've been introduced to some of the more tactical versions, and that's why I ended up with this 9mm rope setup. But the goal is to be able to go vertically up and down. Just get sleds into, if I make another film, it's going to be about an adventure, and it's going to be way out there, and it's going to be about survival.
I wish you do
stuff like that. Like, that's kind of the direction that I'd like to head.
Yeah.
But the rope rescue technology, I can't wait to bust some of it out and show you.
You're the
I don't know
guy
if you
that-
like to rappel or swing off big cliffs and stuff like that, but it's super cool. And now, to have a setup where you could do it with a sled, I think it'd be.
You're the guy to have around on those days.
Yeah,
You are.
Well,
With
I'm not gonna pull a 550-pound machine by hand straight up vanishing point ever again in my life. Tanner, you're an amazing guy, an amazing rider, but I'm never doing that again. Just so you know.
What was it, like 10 of us standing on the face of that chute? It's a good thing it was a good day for it.
Yeah, it was a good day for that. So, which it leads me to this next question about mod sleds. The ultimate sled for me, I think, would be the chassis that I'm in, which is the Matrix / Boost 165. But if I could have the Ducati V4 engine in there, that would be perfect.
You're getting into that realm
that,
of where the Apex engines are being put into these skidoos. There's a few guys in Alberta that have done it. Now, what cc is the Ducati engine?
1103.
It's a little bit bigger. And then, what's the horsepower on that thing?
214 at the crank.
You don't even need to be supercharged or boosted.
No.
The power to weight, though, because it would weigh a lot more, it would kind of take away a little bit of that horsepower, but it would still be pretty rank.
Wow.
It'd be really rank.
I think with exhaust, and you can remap them, and then they go to 240 horsepower.
So what?
Pretty
buy
easy.
a piled up bike, someone crashed at a racetrack, and then the engine's still
I
good.
don't know. I'm starting to think that way, that the big mods got to come back. Because I come from superbike land, and lots of people are like, oh man, you're flying through the trees. How do you do it? Because, sleds were so slow for so long. I remember my 2012 Skidoo XP and trying to up through the trees. And then now with these factory boosts, it's just straight up through the trees. But even at full pin, with the skis in the air, I look at the speedometer and I'm doing 90 to 100, maybe 110 in places. And I'm used to doing 220, 240, 260, 290, 300 on a bike.
Yes.
So it's I feel like I'm kind of in slow motion on
There's room to go faster for you.
That's what I'm thinking. 200 kilometer an hour track speed would be a target right now. If I could find somebody that could build that and put me on it and have it weigh the same with roughly the same balance as what I got in terms of the Polaris Slash chassis, it would be.
Wonder what the weight of the Ducati engine is, that 1100 then.
I'm going to start digging into this actually, because
you should.
I happen to have a V4 engine.
Yes, you do.
Can you imagine taking it out? We'll just take it out of here and we'll put it
for
into
just
here.
the winter.
You're not using this right now anyways.
No. I actually think you'd still probably want it to be supercharged or turboed. You'd still would want to do that. You still want the 270 horsepower. Because on our sleds, the
200 horse gets
210,
eaten up right
210,
away.
220 is not quite enough. You want, I know you'll be 250, and then you'll be 260, then you'll be 270. You just keep turning it up. Then eventually you're 300, and that's kind of the max.
Yeah, but eventually it's just power to weight ratio. So I've always believed in making things lighter.
Yeah.
Rather than adding more power is generally more useful. If you can do both at the same time without adding weight or chopping weight, that would be the most ideal scenario. But really it comes down to track. At 300 horsepower, how do you keep your drive system together, right? Those are all specialty parts now.
They are.
It starts to cost quite a bit. So.
Well, then they're heavier parts. So in order to run the horsepower, you need to have the heavier components that can handle that and not twist and snap.
Yeah, 250. And let's put it this way: any snowmobile manufacturer that can add 50 horsepower and shave 50 pounds off,
they're doing pretty freaking good.
I'll make a switch.
Yeah,
I'll run that machine. That's all I care about right now. The most amount of power with the least amount of weight.
Yeah.
And then just do stupid stuff. Watch you do some stupid stuff. Convince myself I can do stupid stuff like that. And then
number 5 up super shoot.
And then go for it. Yeah, number 5. I've watched it enough times. That's the cool part about being a film guy is that I get to ride with some of the craziest people on planet Earth, some of the best riders on planet Earth. And they're all connected together in these little cliques up and down the Rockies from Utah all the way up to Alaska, right? There's riders in the Rocky Mountains, and everybody else wants to be a mountain rider. Well, guess what? We are. And so as a film guy, you get to know these people and then ride with them and then film with them, and then it normalizes this behavior and it just becomes normal. And then you edit and you watch it and you're like, oh, look at them put energy into the bars there, and like you're like learning how to ride. So I'm becoming this chimera of all these other people and going from a nerdy film guy who built his own computer and started riding sleds because motorcycles were, socially unacceptable, to go drifting and do wheelies through town and stunting on a motorcycle, to like, here's a sled.
Go ahead and do it now.
Go ahead and do it now. And that, I got to tell you right now, I really enjoy being back on the bike. Ducati V4 is an amazing ride. Nothing beats 200 kilometer an hour wheelies. Not that you would do that on a public road.
No. Well, you were at the track.
Yeah.
I saw your track day.
I was at the track.
Yeah.
But coming into winter, there's no rules back there. That's the thing. Like, I'm sure there's a 60 kilometer an hour, 35 mile an hour speed limit on the trail. But once you go off trail and we're in the wilderness, there's no rules. There's no seatbelts. No one is coming.
No one is.
It's just so wild out there. And you're just like, how big are your eyes? How big are your cojones? How much power do you have? How much money do you have? Who are your friends? Who are you with?
Yeah.
And then
what are the conditions?
Bust out the cameras, and then So this year is gonna go. I'm gonna go straight back to kind of what I was doing in the springtime on those big poles. Start cutting and grooming cornices early in the year and
maintaining the chutes.
Yep, that's what's next. And
that's a good idea.
That's what the old timers used to do.
Hey, the Dan Davidoff, they used to cut those things off. I remember even hearing from Randy the chute. I can't remember what one they did, but yeah, they were cutting huge chutes, and they used to have this rope set up that with the weight on the bottom, it would cut through with the weight on the bottom of it and cut.
Oh, really?
And then through and then let go. You'd have to talk to Tanner, I think. I think Tanner would be able to give you more details on it and what they used to have. But something like that where there's the weight on the bottom. You just keep lifting and lifting and lifting. And
well, I'm a rope guy, so I'm pretty sure we'll be able to figure it out.
I think so.
But in the process, hopefully get some pretty cool avalanche footage as well. Need some more of that.
Put the drone up for when that thing lets go.
Yeah, for when the cornice lets go.
It's almost like that piece of dynamite blew up and then cleaned it out for you.
Well, I won't be using explosives in the backcountry.
No, it's almost like it blew up.
I got to be careful what I say there. Yeah, it's all I can say is I'm looking forward to another big season. Hopefully we get a chance to hang out. Looks like you are now with Arctic Cat out of Fernie, which is where I live, and I'm on Polaris out of Cranbrook, which is where you live. So
we'll meet in the middle.
We'll meet in the middle. Different brands, I think, is a good thing for people to see that kind of stuff. So
it is.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the season. I'm gonna hopefully ride a little bit harder in the early season. I started jumping last year, but then we just didn't really have the snowpack. So I'm looking, there's a couple big hits that I want to hit, but hoping for 2 or 3 meters of snow that I can land in as I'm learning how to fly.
Powder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then hopefully by the springtime I'll be able to.
Stump and bumps and the roots. Those jumps are my favorite jumps.
So
there's those big ones that those guys hit. I mean, I can hit them too. I have hit them. And, you sail, you're 40, 50 feet. I don't do those great big ones, but, I can hit a not bad jump. But my favorite are the ones that it's like we're a tree and all the big timber have blown down. You're in the trees and there's that root. You can see this massive, like, you know,
big
8-foot pile of snow that's buried and just launch off that. Those are my favorite ones.
To flat.
No, you land on the side of the tree that's laying down in the snow.
Yeah.
You got a little 2-foot transition. But yeah, a meter of powder. And you just crater into it.
Yeah, last year
to
wasn't the year, that's for sure. Hopefully, we'll see what's going on. Yeah. Winter looks a little bit more normal this year.
So you had snow already up in Fernie. I had my son out on the weekend. I was getting firewood. He went for a little brap, and then I went back up. Got some more wood on Monday. Was puking. I bet you it snowed another 4 or 5 inches right where I was, where he was riding the other day. So yeah, it's coming. So just let it keep coming. Hopefully, you know, those 4 or 5 inches every couple of days will add up.
I got my cameras, everything's set up and waiting. I've got a backup spare now. I ruined the sensor last year on my A7S III, so now I've got 2 Sony cameras ready to go in the backcountry. New gimbal, thinking about hopefully going to get into FPV gimbal mount cinema camera on a drone. So 160, 170 kilometer an hour cinema camera flying through the backcountry is where I want to go next.
That's gonna be a whole nother thing of fun. You're gonna go out riding sometimes just to go fly your drone as like a the thrill of that.
It's all mixed together into this one weird creative art thing where the mountains are a big giant canvas, and I always like to look for those special shots. And like for me, the art is everything. Just the way the mountains, the snow comes in, the storms roll in, the culture. Like I always try and capture these little storylines in everything that I do. I know in today's day and age with the scrolly types, they just want to see the money shot and whatever. And I've resisted the urge to give in. I don't care how many followers I have. I just want to create like the most high-end, coolest looking stuff that's like, oh wow, that was interesting. And if people only see 1 or 2 of my videos every year, I'm happy with that, instead of the 1 or 2 videos every day that some of these other folks are pumping out. And
you quit looking as it becomes too much. And I know you're right. When you release something, it's like, yeah, that video is sweet. And some of them are from previous films you've released.
Yep.
But when you do put one out there, it's a big one. It's like, yeah, you're going to watch it again because that's that shoot, or this is that video, or that's that shot.
You do, or even the last year with Ted, or the other year, Sled Farm Rising. You go up hanger first, and then Tanner comes up on the NA, barely makes it,
smacks off the snow pile,
smacks into the cornice, almost takes the camera off his helmet, into that little bush thing,
the tree,
and you're like, I see you with your cell phone camera because we got the footage, and it's like, you want to film a guy, and you're a film guy too, so you know you have to keep the camera rolling. but you're like, if I don't help him, if I don't grab his ski, he might go back down the other way. So you're trying to do both at the same time, and I just had a good laugh. Like, yeah, it's just cool when you have, you know, the best riders and the best filmers in the world together in the same spot, and everyone's like in this headspace, and
it does work well.
It's pretty cool. It's an experience that money can't buy. That you either fit in, it works, or you're not there.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is.
You gotta have patience sometimes too. You can't just start flying up a chute or even hitting a jump or something before everyone's ready. Like you said, it's got to be the right crew that, you know, understands that setting up for that nice shot takes a little bit of time. Just give it a minute, and then it's worth it. Because it is good stuff. Like the footage that you have in Sled Farm with the Creekworks crew, the jumps that they're doing, or even Logan's jump, man, some of those shots are freaking sick of them flying through the air the way they are, and your drone is just in that perfect spot, and then you have a camera on another angle, and they look good.
Yeah, I've worked hard to like speed up my process because, you know, coming from the film side, I always, in my own head, I want the light. I have so many things that I want in that shot. And then not really understanding or knowing things from an athlete perspective, like when you're in the headspace and you're in the zone. And then once I started to do the crossover from just like a film guy creating content, which everyone else was putting up with me, dragging me around the backcountry, learning how to ride. It took me 10 years to get to where I'm at on a sled now, where I'm like fully self-sufficient. Most people don't even have to worry about me, like, whatever. he'll show up. It'll be fine. But
We all know that if they need you bad enough, you're going to call on the radio.
In the early years, though, I struggled a little bit trying to get used to it, right? But doing the crossover to the athlete thing and realizing, like, I got to hit that now. And, like, the drive and the desire on something big that could kill you has to happen with this certain process. It unfolds and rolls and it reveals itself to you, and then you go. And if you got some camera guys like, oh, hang on a second. Right? This is like, I get it now. So seeing from both sides of the lens, I've taken my workflow and made it so that I am probably set up to capture something before anybody else, before an athlete even looks at me and is like, oh, are you ready for the shot? Because I ride with mostly the same guys. You, Logan, Blair, you got the West Kootenay Castlegar crew, the Lindleys, Hudikoff, Tanner, those guys, Creekworks. Pretty much riding with the same people for the most part now, Tian, and you just get to know these people and you know what they're looking at. And then I just go get myself set up, and then they hit it, or they look at me and like, yeah, I'm ready. It's like, okay, they hit it, we got it, and then my next move now is like rolling up and going, okay, so like, are you blapping off the top of that, or how does that work? And then I'm starting to go hit the same stuff too now, which is kind of cool.
It's a pretty sweet connection.
Just learning from the best riders in the world and becoming a better rider and a better filmer every single trip out. It's pretty cool.
You are. Well, thank you for your time and coming to my shop. I guess you haven't been here before. You gave me a phone call. Hey, where is it? And then I pulled my phone out and realized, boy, he's been texting me asking for the address. Oops, yeah, no, this is where it's at. Sorry.
G14 classified. I've only been here a couple of times. But it looks like we're going to be building a new sled in the shop here.
This is where it'll happen.
Yeah. Nice.
Lift it up, hang it up.
Well, that's cool. Who are you going after next with the podcast thing? Logan, should we do call outs? Logan Thibodeau.
Logan's going to have to get on here. We have Alex Ibbotson coming on soon.
Yeah, Avalanche trainer, woman from Kimberly. I've rode with her once, I think, briefly.
Yeah.
And then you've got the
Dan
Creekworks guys.
Dan Verrott, I got him coming.
Who's
he
that?
Creates the bumpers out of town here.
Oh,
Reimer's Rendering.
Right.
So we're going to get some products up here. We'll kind of show him off. He can explain his design, his thought. You know, there's a point to where things don't want to be too strong and other stuff will start to bend. And, you know, like, well, why are you building it this way and all that? We'll get all that kind of into detail. And then, I want to go to Revy and meet up with Tyson. He's, the king. So we got to hear from Reeves and see what's been going on all summer.
I got to get in. I got me one of them Propexes. I think that's what I need to get.
Those are mean propane machines.
Powered Propex scenario. That looks pretty gnarly.
Get 4 of them into the crew because right now they got 3 of them.
Right. Who's Matt Slayer's got one?
Matt has one, and then Kent has one.
Right.
From Sycamoose area. I think he might be from...
You have to get invited into that club, though, don't you? You can't even buy your way.
You can't. You got to be part of the crew.
You have to know somebody. Well, maybe one day soon I will,
Someone needs to check out that day in Revelstoke on YouTube. Alex has been there. If you want to see, he's been filmed a little bit with those guys, and it's been some pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, well, that was awesome. It was like straight up the airport shoots, and then you're just over to Monster. Save it. Don't do that one just in case you wreck, and like you should wreck on the big one. And then you do Monster, and then it's like that's just the gateway. Everyone, that's kindergarten shoot climbing. It's Monster on a good day.
It is. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I like your setup. I like what you're doing, and look forward to coming on the show again. And maybe we'll be announcing a brand new movie.
That'd be sweet.
Sometime soon.
Look forward to that.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.